just pure ecstasy. But this Chargers fan, is the Chargers in tied at 17? If there's a definition of pure ecstasy, that's it. I mean, just pure ecstasy. But this Chargers fan, is the Chargers in tied at 17? If there's a definition of pure ecstasy, that's it.
Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. We're going over the most recent Arsenal news and transfer news, so make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. I know you guys got your notification. Seawalder saying you got your notification. The reason why I know you guys did is because there's a lot more people in here early doors than there usually is. So good. I'm glad you got your notification. Speaking of notifications, you guys need to put your notifications on for this weekend shows. Obviously, we're going to be doing a live watch along as well. By we, I mean me. I don't know why I'm acting like I have this big corporation and all these people working with me. It ain't we, it's me. I'm doing a live watch along and player ratings for the Chelsea game. And those shows are already up on the channel. So you guys can set your notifications for that, especially the player ratings, because I know some of you guys will kind of like jump in and jump out of the watch along. And pre-match vibes does start an hour before the game starts so that we can go over team news and freak out about that and do our predictions and things like that. So make sure you guys go do that for me. Channel news is rolling across the bottom of your screen, but I'll go over it. I just talked about the Chelsea watch along and player ratings, but for Patreon, there's going to be a match preview for Chelsea available tomorrow. Obviously, I need to wait for Arteta to do his press conference. I'm going to try to wait. I think he's going to do it at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So I'll try to release it like right after that so that you have all day to kind of like watch the preview. But I want to make sure that the team news in terms of availability is correct for that, because that definitely changes the entire conversation around what we should be doing against Chelsea. Then another Patreon podcast, the post-match podcast, is going to be with Gunnar Lee. And that's going to come out on Monday morning. So, and I'm working on something else that's not going to be Patreon. It's going to be available to everybody. I'm trying to get Pippa on. So cross your fingers I can make that happen. But that's your channel news. So again, set your notifications for the next couple of shows, just so you don't miss out on the show and all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah. She Knows Arsenal is 500 subscribers away from 20K. And I'm working on something, a giveaway for it. So let's get there as soon as possible. Make sure if you guys are new that you're subscribing. And if you have any friends that are Arsenal fans that love watching Arsenal content, show them the channel and say, go ahead and subscribe so we can get that giveaway going. All right. Enough of that. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Just like the Chargers lady, which, by the way, if you guys are not aware of like, you know, what that's from, that lady was like losing her mind at the Chargers game. And I don't think the Chargers are like not that good. So yeah. But she was losing her mind and that clip went viral. And later found like there was later like some pictures that were discovered of her in like a Ravens top not too long ago. So it kind of like devalued the vibe that she had going on the day, but like the clip is still valid for us. Like I am so happy that Arsenal are going to be playing now on Saturday after the game. I could be thinking differently. I could be like, damn, I wish it was international break again. But weekends without Arsenal are not weekends that are very fun. So I am glad that Arsenal are back in 2 days, but we don't have any team news from Mikel Arteta just yet because he's doing his press conference tomorrow. And I'm really excited to understand who's available or not, because you guys know I'm here for the tea. I want to know what Mikel Arteta is going to do when he has Thomas Partey and Jesus and Saka and Martinelli and Declan Rice all available to him at once, and see if he's going to go ahead and put out what we would imagine is our best 11, or is he going to do something else? Knowing Mikel Arteta, he's going to do something else. He usually throws a wrench in the plans. He usually has plans of his own. So I'm interested to hear about the team news. leading up to the Chelsea game, because if everybody's available, we all know who we want to see. We all know who we want to see. We're gonna get into the drama around the goalkeeper situation. Aaron Ramsdale has spoken out about being dropped and his fears around his position in the England squad. So we're going to talk about that, as well as West Ham having the first right of refusal for an Arsenal star. So again, get into the chat. Let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. I am still very sad that you guys made fun of my glasses yesterday and called me a nerd and said that my glasses were too big and that the glare was too bright and you guys couldn't watch the show with those glasses on. No, I'm just joking. You guys didn't say all that. But yeah, no glasses today for those of you guys who were here yesterday. C. Walder says, got my notification today. C. Walder says, that's me on the inside. That's, yeah. Crispy says, that's all of us. The McChronicle says, oh, that was funny. Saw it live on Monday Night Football and could not stop cracking up. I mean, she was going in. Like, she was so excited. And like, I don't know. That's how I feel like at the Emirates when I'm watching Arsenal play. I'm just like, everything. I'm like living the game with them. Like, it's so crazy. Like, sports, man. You are such a different person when you are like invested in your sports teams. Chosen One says, what's up, Lionel Jesse? I actually love that name. Let me write that shit down, man. Okay, Chosen One, I see that. I see that. I'm about to write this down right here in this notepad right here. Well, this like digital notepad. Lionel Jesse. Thank you. I'm going to be using that, okay? The GOAT. C. Walder says Gunnar Lee is a top Giza, not to be confused with Lee Gunnar, obviously. Yeah, there's other Lees. You got Lee Judges, you have Gunnar Lee, and then you have Lee Gunnar. I still want to do a show with Lee Gunnar at some stage. Like, I feel like it would be entertaining. And I always have questions to ask him that I feel like he won't really answer, but it would be fun to just see him kind of like try to figure out some way to make things negative. I would not be opposed to doing a show with him, but not now. It's going to be Gunnar Lee. The McChronicle says same girl was also a Minnesota Vikings fan last year. Exactly. Ocampo says, I want to see our best 11 play. I think everybody has a version of what our best 11 is. And we're hoping that Mikel Arteta has the ability to put that lineup out and actually does it. John P says, I'm a fan of the glasses. See, some people like the glasses. Okay. Samuel says, I just watched the Football Tears, your meme. You're a meme out there. Me? I'm a meme? What did I do? Why am I a meme? What happened? Actually, I don't know what happened. So you need to tell me why I'm a meme. The Bigfoot Thomas says, keep up the good work. Thank you. Glad you guys are enjoying the content. And Crispy says, Lee Gunnar versus Jess. I need that box office stuff. I would do it. Like, you guys know I'm not afraid of anybody. And like, it's just football. Like, I just want to see what he has to say. Harold says, life is better for those who love football. Exactly. So let's get into the nitty gritty, you guys. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, all that. And yes, we did do a little bit of waffling, but you know what? We have to let people get through the door first. Okay. That's how we do the show. It's clickbait and waffle. Okay. All right. So Aaron Ramsdale has spoken out about his being dropped and how he feels about the situation. You know, he says that he admits he fears for his place in the England squad ahead of the next summer's Euros after losing his number one spot at Arsenal, and reveals the reason why his dad sent that tweet to Jamie Carragher. You guys remember all of that. Aaron Ramsdale admits he fears for his place. The goalkeeper has been a fixture in the Gunner starting 11 for 2 seasons, but has now lost his place in Mikel Arteta's team to David Raya, who arrived from Brentford in the summer. Arteta was plotting a change in the goalkeeper position, with the Gunners' boss selecting Raya ahead of Ramsdale in the team's game against Everton. He was asked about whether he concerned about losing his space in the England squad, and he said, yes, of course. It's the first time I have found myself in this situation. He said the manager, Gareth Southgate, is brilliant. He trusts the players he's worked with before. As we've seen in different types of ways, you'll see Calvin Phillips and Harry Maguire haven't played the most amount of minutes for their club team, but step up for England and are given the opportunity to perform. When given the opportunity, they perform. So if that's the case for myself, I do get shown that trust to play another game. If I haven't played for my club, I will have to repay him. But of course, I want to get back into my club team. I want to get into my club team. I don't know why I said that twice, and be able to give the manager a headache rather than just have Jordan Pickford as the number one and me fall by the wayside. This is very honest from Aaron. This is my first time actually like reading it. He said on his relationship with Raya that we work professionally really well together. We push each other in training, and there's days where I come in and I'm down because of the situation, and he picks me up. And for whatever reason, there might be a day where he's down, and even though I'm suffering and hurting for not playing, I have to stand up and be able to push him and make sure he's ready for the weekend if he's picked to play. Um, and they're saying that his body language has been like a constant conversation. And then also the situation with him like clapping when Raya made that really good save against Spurs. They mentioned that. And then he said, I was laughing when I saw that. He was absolutely devastated with that, really. And so here's the thing. We'll talk about the character stuff in a second. But should Aaron Ramsdale be worried about losing his spot in the England team? Yeah, absolutely, he should. Because if you see what happened to Leno in competitive national team setups, when you lose your number one position, like Leno did at Arsenal, like the very next time that he was supposed to get called up or Germany was about to play, he was dropped. And so he had to move to a different club in order to just be the number 3 goalkeeper for Germany. So Aaron should be 100%, worried about his position. He's right that Gareth Southgate does tend to be quite loyal to the players that he loves, like Harry Maguire and Calvin Phillips, who don't really play significant minutes for their club teams, but still continuously get called up. Is that going to be the same situation for Aaron? Only he would know, because we don't know what the relationship is like between Gareth Southgate and different players. Like, some players are dropped right away. You look at somebody like Sterling, who has been spectacular, like performer for England for years. And, he had a difficult time at the beginning of his time with Chelsea. He, got called up and then pulled out of camp, I think once, and now he can't get back in. So he could have a Sterling situation, or he could end up in a Harry Maguire situation. Who knows? Who really knows? But, if he's worried, then, do you think Harry Maguire was ever worried about losing his England spot? No, because he knows that the manager rates him and obviously has a relationship with Gareth Southgate. So Aaron, I think, should be worried about his position. And as a goalkeeper, it's just not the same as being a field player. There's only one goalkeeper that plays the majority of games. And if you're not the number 1 and you're the number 2, you're playing very, very limited minutes. And so it just puts everything up in the air. And again, like I've said multiple times, that I don't want to go too far into the idea that, Aaron's going to be like leaving in the very next window. Because some people have said, speculating that he's going to be on the market or be asking to leave or knocking on Mikel Arteta's door in January, asking for a transfer. I don't know if I'm that comfortable saying that. And quite frankly, I don't think Arsenal should be looking to sell Aaron Ramsdale in January. I think, as maybe if he wanted it, you maybe want to be able to give him that. But at the same time, from an Arsenal perspective, we have to be selfish. And if something were to happen to Raya, like, you want to have Aaron Ramsdale there. So some people have speculated that he would be knocking on Mikel Arteta's door in January. I'm not I don't know if I'm 100% bought into that idea. What I will say is that what I do feel very strongly is that a situation with 2 goalkeepers that are number 1 level goalkeepers will only last for a certain amount of time. And I do feel like, even though there's been a big song and dance at the club or in the media coming from the club around this is going to be a 2 goalkeepers fighting for the position, I've felt deep down that it's a slow breakup, and that eventually, like, I feel like it's already done. Like, David Raya is the number 1 and Ramsdale is not. He's the number 2. That's how I feel in my gut. And that, even though they're saying that it's going to be them fighting against each other, it's really not. But that's what you want to tell to the media, because you don't want to say Aaron Ramsdale is somebody that we like. but we don't feel like he's good enough to take us to the next level. So we had to bring in somebody to upgrade upon him. You don't want to say that because that sounds harsh and that invites more speculation. But if you say that you're doing two number one goalkeepers that are going to fight against each other, it's something that, the media will kind of like, all right, it's okay. And then kind of just accept it for the time being. Eventually, there will be a clear number one, in my opinion. Is that like right this second? No. Do I think it's going to be in January? No. Do I feel like it'll be in the summer? I don't know. But if he's worried about his position, at some point he will knock on the door. We just don't know how soon that will be. I don't think that Aaron Ramsdale being worried about his position and, potentially maybe wanting to look at options elsewhere necessarily means that he's like totally unhappy at Arsenal and is kicking up a fuss in the dressing room. That was something that was said immediately in the aftermath of him losing his spot. Was people were saying that he was a problem in the dressing room and look at his body language. I think there's been a lot made of it. David Raya had a shaky first 20 minutes against Manchester City. And every 5 seconds they were panning to his face and saying, he looks nervous. He looks like he's shell shocked. After those first 20 minutes, like he was fine after that. And in the second half, he was great. But they just kept wanting to like force this like David Raya is under pressure and Aaron Ramsdale's under pressure. And they're both freaking out about the situation that Mikel Arteta caused on his own. And let's just let the ship play out the way it's going to play out. Eventually there'll be a clear number one, I feel. But do we need to be like pushing this shit like right now, like the way that they're doing it? I don't think Aaron Ramsdale is acting up in the dressing room. I don't think he's so unhappy that he's sulking and like, I don't. I think a lot's being made of that part of it. But, Arsenal wanted to get in a new number one goalkeeper or another goalkeeper. They clearly felt like it was a position to upgrade upon. And I'll never, be upset with the club at feeling like this is what's necessary to get us to the next level. It's just whether or not now I'm looking at Raya as like, okay, now I want to see if you're the guy, and I think there's still a great area there, for a lot of people, like whether or not Raya's actually like, now we're trying to figure out if he's going to be our Allison. I think I'm beyond the conversation on Raya versus Ramsdale of who's the better goalkeeper. I'm beyond that now because I'm pretty solid in feeling like Raya is the better goalkeeper, deserves to be the number one. That's how I feel. If you had asked me last season who I thought was a better goalkeeper before we were even linked with David Raya, I would have said David Raya. The stats back it up. Everything backs it up. He was top 4 goalkeeper in the league last season, and Ramsdale was somewhere towards the bottom. So I'm beyond the conversation around Ramsdale versus Raya, who's better and who's not. We've done that to death. I'm more concerned about, is Raya the guy that's going to is going to be our Allison or our Ederson? That's more where I'm at. But of course, the media is very heavily focused on the drama, the potential drama between Arteta and Ramsdale, Raya and Ramsdale, Ramsdale's body language. Is he upset? Is he this? Is he going to cause issues? Is he going to do this and that? And I don't think Ramsdale's going to cause issues. If he wants to go, I don't think it'll end up being a situation where he needs to be sat off to the side or training away from the team and all that. I don't think it's going to be that. But I also think there's a heavy emphasis on this because he's English. And, if he was, I don't know, German, nobody would care because, there's a vested interest from the English media around this goalkeeper. Some people feel like he is destined to be the number one. If he's destined to be the number one, then he needs to be starting somewhere. And so I want to just make sure I keep that in mind. Let's see what you guys are saying. Ocampo says Allison and Ederson are levels in distribution. I think Raya is still elite. Nicholas J says, I agree with Jess. I'm pro Raya. Simon says Raya is only better at kicking out of the hand. EPL says Ramsdale Premier League Team of the Year. Crispy says Raya is definitely the number one. I just wonder if Arteta will actually give Ramsdale a shot to get back in or not. Yeah, it's, is he really gonna do what he said we were doing? That they're gonna fight against each other and it's gonna be open and there is no clear number one. Is he gonna hold that up, or has this been all like a ruse just to not say the truth, which is they just feel like Raya is better and they needed to upgrade their goalkeeper situation. It still could turn around. We could be talking in a couple of weeks and Raya could have had a couple of bad performances and Ramsdale's back in the team, and we're having a completely different conversation. I'm just telling you what my gut is telling me, that Ramsdale's been replaced. That's what I'm feeling in my gut. Especially because Mikel Arteta is a liar. Like, this man will tell you anything, in the media, lie to you straight to your face and do something completely different. We've seen that before. So I take everything that Mikel Arteta says with a grain of salt, knowing that sometimes it's to protect the club or to create a wall between what Arsenal are really trying to do in the media, because the media, I don't think, always deserves to get 100% the truth all the time, especially with an ongoing situation that's pretty sensitive. So yeah, I I feel like they've already decided, but we'll see. Michael says the only reason I believe this two number one situation is that Rambo is 3 years younger than Raya. I genuinely believe that in the long term, the club sees the scenario where Rambo takes the mantle in 2 years. There was something that had come out with Raya talking about eventually he wanted to play in La Liga. Like, Raya is 27 years old, like he's in his prime right now. I know goalkeepers, their prime lasts longer than others, like they can play well into their 30s. But, if Raya wanted to in 2 or 3 years, go play in Spain, he could. And then Ramsdale could become the number one. But the issue with that is, in theory and on paper, that makes a lot of sense. But Ramsdale has a career that could easily pass him by in the next 2 to 3 seasons. Look at what's happened with Emile Smith Rowe. Emile Smith Rowe was somebody that we couldn't even imagine a world without just a couple of years ago in 2021. In 2023, everything looks different. The way that we play, the players that are there, look how much has changed since then. And so in 2 or 3 years, who knows who's going to come through the ranks goalkeeper wise for England. Maybe they start looking at somebody else. Maybe they start looking at Burnley's keeper. I think his name is like Trafford. He's in the pipeline. He's in the under 21s. In 2 seasons, he could be, knocking on the door. So Ramsdale, I don't know if he has 2 or 3 years to be in this battle with Raya and eventually win it by the time he's like 28. Because what could have passed him by then? We have a Euros, and then by the time he's 28, we'll be back towards the World Cup again. So he has to be very, I think, cognizant of the decisions that he makes from here on in when it comes to his national team career. And 2 or 3 years is a very long time in football. It's a very short career. And I don't know, does Ramsdale love Arsenal enough where he's willing to be a part of this kind of like new look goalkeeper situation? Or does he go to somebody like, I don't know, Newcastle, who definitely need to upgrade upon Nick Pope? He's worked with, Eddie Howe before, and he would probably do well in an environment like St. James, you know, as a number one goalkeeper. So, he has to make that decision for himself, you know. Um, let's see. African says, Jess, no cap. I think Raya is your preference. You always throwing it. Lil did at Rambo. The interesting thing about Ramsdale is that when he first came to Arsenal, I'll actually probably pull the video just for people to understand that, like, I was one of the only content creators on here that backed the Ramsdale signing. I said from the beginning that just because you've been relegated doesn't necessarily mean that you're not a good player, and that we shouldn't just not buy Ramsdale because he's been relegated. If Arsenal sees something in this goalkeeper and he's better than Leno at what Arteta needs for this team, then we should go out and buy Ramsdale. Last season, when he was really falling away, I backed him, even though he was making huge mistakes. I was saying it's not just his fault that we didn't win the title. I backed him when he did that interview, when him and Stones did that interview, and he basically was very honest about the idea that he just thought that we would keep winning and was basically exposing the lack of mentality in our team. And people were going in on him. I backed him, for being honest, and, the fact that players are human. So despite the fact that I think Raya is the better goalkeeper, and that I'm honest about Ramsdale making mistakes. I don't hate Ramsdale. I don't dislike him. Raya is the better goalkeeper to me, and I'm not going to lie about that because I like Ramsdale. And I think a lot of the backing of Ramsdale is not necessarily based on his ability. It's more based on the emotional attachment to a player that we really like. And football is not about who you like. It's about who gets you closer to trophies. Raya gets us closer to trophies, in my opinion. So I don't dislike Ramsdale. In fact, I've backed him more than a lot of other people have, but he's made some massive mistakes. The goalkeeper that we saw 2 years ago is not the goalkeeper that we've seen recently. His kicking has been inconsistent, if not tame, and poor at times. Every single shot was going in the back of the net at the beginning of the season. And so I don't really blame Arsenal for looking to upgrade in certain positions. And again, if it ends up being somebody that I'm emotionally attached to, like Odegaard, let's say, I will try not to let my emotions get in the way of the fact that we have to upgrade upon a player that's holding us back. And Ramsdale for me is somebody that I looked at that position at the end of last season and it didn't look good. Our goalkeeper should not be performing like one of the worst goalkeepers in the league. At the beginning of this season, he was second to bottom worst goalkeepers in the league before he was dropped. And at the end of last season, he was lower, like middle, where Raya was number 4 in a worse team. So I get it that like we're emotionally attached to players. And so it's difficult to it feels very harsh. And the way that it's been done has been harsh by the club. But like, if I feel like Raya is the better goalkeeper, I'm not going to lie about that. And it may seem like I hate a player. Like y'all think I hate Thomas Partey because I said he's always injured and we needed to upgrade upon him because we couldn't rely upon him, only for him to get injured in August. And if we did not have Declan Rice, who knows where we'd be. So again, emotions aside, there's certain players that you need to upgrade upon because they get you closer to where you want to be, despite really liking certain guys. Or because Ramsdale is not a bad goalkeeper. He's actually very talented and very, very good. The goalkeeper that we saw when he took Leno's position has really faded away. But deep down, that's a very good goalkeeper in there. So it's not about Raya good, Ramsdale bad. It's Ramsdale very good, Raya better than Ramsdale. Even by 5% could be the difference between us winning the title or not. Those are the fine margins that we're dealing with. So, it is what it is. I know people don't like my takes on players and they feel like I'm harsh. But, despite really liking Ramsdale, I do feel like Ray is the better goalkeeper, and I owe it to you guys to be honest and not just tell you guys what you want to hear. Um, let's see. She wore a yellow ribbon, says Raya is our number 1. Boy says Harsh would have been selling Rambo. Fair enough. John P says, I think Ramsdale will be a top goalkeeper in a few years. I think Raya is better for us now. Would a loan in the summer be out of the question? If not, what is he worth? I think United like paying 50 million. I mean, loaning out Ramsdale at this stage feels a little, I don't know if I've ever seen that done before. Have you guys seen it done before where you loan out a goalkeeper with the intention of actually bringing them back? Like I know Kepa is on a loan to Real Madrid and they've brought in another goalkeeper at Chelsea that they really like in Sanchez, but I don't think they have the intention of ever bringing what is his name? Kepa back. Yeah. So has there ever been a situation like this? That would be very uncommon, I feel like. But in terms of there would be Premier League teams, I think, very interested in Ramsdale. I think maybe West Ham would be interested. I think Newcastle would definitely be interested. Chelsea potentially interested. So there will be teams that are calling. We've talked about this before where, Sammy McBell, the same person that breaks all the Arsenal news and tends to be pretty spot on with most things, was saying that Chelsea and Bayern Munich are monitoring the situation. People called him a liar. But why wouldn't top teams be monitoring the situation with Ramsdale when they know the Euros are right there around the corner and Ramsdale potentially needs to be a number 1 goalkeeper somewhere? It's not out of the realm of possibility. So loaning him out seems unlikely, but selling him, at the end of the season is something that could happen. It's a tough one. Um, let's see. Kai says perfect example of the shiny new toy syndrome going on here. Raya has been very shaky since coming into the side, but it's been overlooked because he's viewed as an upgrade. I don't think it's shiny new toys. Like, to be I've given you guys very concrete evidence on why Raya is the better goalkeeper. I don't know who that is. Somebody's calling me. Um, the statistics from last season when Raya wasn't even our goalkeeper, and then the statistics since Raya's been our goalkeeper, they both played the same amount of games. If not, Raya's played one more now. And the stats really don't lie. Despite Raya being a little shaky on the ball against Spurs and Man City, he's still better than Ramsdale. So, he had a shaky 20 minutes against Manchester City. But the funny thing is that people that really love Ramsdale forgot about the 70 minutes after that, where a lot of his kicking and his distribution from the back is the reason why we beat Manchester City anyway. But everybody forgot about that because of those first 20 minutes where they were being driven by their emotional attachment to Ramsdale, when I've seen Ramsdale do the exact same things. And no, like, if anybody can give me a legitimate reason why Raya should be dropped now, because some people feel like Ramsdale should come back into the team because Raya's been so shaky. Give me a legitimate reason why Ramsdale should come back into this team that does not involve Raya. So not that, oh, well, Ramsdale made the same mistakes as, Raya, or Raya's made the same mistakes as Ramsdale, so Ramsdale should get a chance now. What, from a goalkeeping perspective, in terms of saves, distribution, claims, whatever, what is a legitimate reason for Ramsdale to come back in and start and be the number one that doesn't have anything to do with Raya and the emotional part of, oh my gosh, well, Ramsdale was dropped so harshly, so why isn't Raya being dropped? Raya should be dropped too. Give me a footballing reason why Ramsdale should start. Newsflash, you can't name one, because with Chest, I don't think anybody that doesn't want Raya in this team doesn't want him in the team that because he's not a good goalkeeper. It's because you're mad about what's happened to Ramsdale. So if you guys can give me some statistics or some information, because with goalkeepers, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to get a clear picture of who's making you better. But for me, saves percentage, you know, passing accuracy, the amount of passes, that both of them are doing and completing, high claims, things like that. Raya is sweeping him off. He's sweeping him off. Like it's really not that close. So if you guys can give me a legitimate reason why Raya should be dropped and Ramsdale should come back in, that doesn't have anything to do with Raya being shaky in his first couple games, please let me know. Because all that this is telling me is that it's emotionally driven because you like Ramsdale and you don't like the way he was treated. So I don't think we should be making decisions on what goalkeeper should be in there based on emotion. It should be based on who's better. And right now, the stats say that Raya is better than Ramsdale, despite a shaky 20 minutes against Man City and the bad game against Spurs. So there's that. Let's see. Wade says, I don't think Ramsdale's interview was controversial or dramatic as you state. He just said he's affected by which is responsible. When did I say that his interview was controversial or dramatic? I said there's more drama made by the media around Ramsdale's whole situation and that they're actually exacerbating the entire thing. But I never once said that Ramsdale was being dramatic or controversial. John P. says Ramsdale might be slightly better shot stopper, but Raya is better on crosses, decisions, calmness, passes, and he stands further forward, which Arteta shouts at Ramsdale every game about. He's actually not a better shot stopper either. The statistics do say that Raya saves more. Raya actually statistically saves more goals than Ramsdale does. So Ramsdale actually saves less than he should. So his expected goals saved is bad. Ramsdale should be saving more than what he does, where Raya saves more than what he should. So he's actually saving us goals. So Ramsdale's not even a better shot stopper. So yeah. P Trim says, Jess, why can't we just trust the manager? Did we envision even being in the conversation for the title last season. Arteta knows what he's trying to accomplish with Raya and Dove. I just feel like I'm beyond this conversation about who's better because nobody can really give me a legitimate goalkeeping reason why Ramsdale should be in the team over Raya. It's just all about how it's happened. You may not have liked how it's happened. I know some people didn't like the way Aubameyang was ousted from the team. People didn't like the way Ozil was ousted from the team. People didn't like the way Tierney was dropped. People didn't like the way so and so, so and so, so and so, and on and on and on and on. But a lot of these harsh decisions, like you said, are the reasons why we have gone up the table and we become a better team. So we've been a club that's been so like heavily like linked to being soft and making decisions based on emotion and things like that instead of making the harsh decisions that help you win things. And so right now I'm kind of wanting to see how these harsher decisions pan out for us. Now, if they don't pan out and Raya ends up being a clown, then I got to hold that, the club has to hold that, whatever. But some of these harsh decisions are the reasons why we've gotten better over time. So I just kind of want to see how it pans out, especially because deep down I feel like Raya is the better goalkeeper. So like I'm really not going to be that fussed over it. Ed Zico says no one cried for Leno and Martinez, real English hypocrisy. Fred says, hi, Jess, I agree. It's inevitable that Rambo is second choice, and because of his high profile, he'll be sold. So to protect his value, we should loan him out to a big club in January for profit and sell eventually. So you're down with the loan as well, which is interesting. A loan would be like a loan to obligation to buy would be the only way that this makes sense to me. Just to loan him feels, it could be like a Raya situation where we know it's going to become permanent, you know, but yeah, I don't know if I'd loan him, but yeah, um, I think it's already done, y'all. I do. There's almost 300 of you guys in here, which is amazing. Like this video and subscribe to the channel and get in the chat and let me know what you guys are thinking. Again, what I've said about the Ramsdale situation is that the media is actually creating quite a bit of drama around this because they're speculating on Raya and Ramsdale's relationship and Ramsdale wanting to leave and, Ramsdale being an issue in the dressing room and things like that. And what I've already kind of said is that I actually don't think Ramsdale will ever be an issue in the dressing room. I think he's a good character and a good guy and is not going to sit around and pout all the time. I actually think that he's going to do his best to be a positive impact on the team because I just don't see Ramsdale as that kind of person. But the media definitely wants this to be something that is constantly spoken about, even though like it could just be let go at this point. Raya is going to play. Raya is the number one. We'll see what happens with Ramsdale, but I feel like the only reason why they truly keep bringing it up is because he's English. But Ramsdale has spoken out, and I think the things that he's said makes a lot of sense where he is worried about his position, which he should be, because depending on your relationship with Gareth Southgate, you're either super safe or you're super not. And he could either be a Raheem Sterling or he could end up being a Harry Maguire. But if he's worried, then I don't think Harry Maguire was ever worried about his position in the England national team. I think he was comforted and assured from minute one that no matter how he played for United, if he ever played for United, he would still have his position. I don't know if Ramsdale has that same security. So he has to make the right decision for himself. Whether he's thinking about making a decision now, we don't know. I think the speculation on January is a little soon. It's something for the summer. But again, the Euros in the summer. So it's tough. It's really tough. But Ramsdale is a very talented young goalkeeper. But the 5% of improvement from Raya could be the difference between Arsenal winning things or not. And so do I want that 5%? Hell yeah, I do. Yes, I do. I want it. If it ends up being that. Saksham says Arteta saw Rambo's performances in preseason and said, fuck it. Raya, I tried not to think too much about them. The goal that he gave up, the Bruno Fernandes one, and he has an issue shuffling his feet and getting to if a shot's going in one direction, he can't really shuffle over. His footwork is strange. And so the one Rafinha free kick that he blamed on Trossard or whoever, but maybe he could have gotten to it. Then the Fulham one, I'm telling y'all, both of those should have been saved. I'm sorry. I was there. I rewatched that game twice and I was like, I think he should have got there. And the data backed it up that even though those were low percentage chances that we gave up in those first 4 games that Ramsdale started, none of them really should have went in. So the goalkeeper should be saving those. Um, it's it's tough beans. It's tough beans. Lady says this Ramsdale Raya issue is kind of similar to the Emmy Martinez issue as well. A lot of our fans cried about Martinez for years. Hopefully things taper down with time. They will. They will. At least from a fan base perspective, I think it will calm down once I think people have kind of accepted the situation a little bit more. Um, but the media will keep dragging it up. But, I think as a fan base, we'll eventually become, you know, I think calm about the situation just because, it is what it is. Yeah. And if we keep winning games with Raya, it'll definitely just completely calm down. John P says, I will laugh when he starts at Chelsea now. That would be hilarious. That would be so funny. If Ramsdale started against Chelsea, I would die. I really would. But again, then we'd have something else to talk about. And then you guys have to come back, so make sure you guys subscribe to the channel because if Ramsdale was to start, you bet your ass team news, pre-game vibes before the Chelsea game during the watch along is going to be popping. Okay. So yeah. Manny says the free kick versus Barca. I tried not to make a big deal out of it, but I was just like, I think he should be getting. Michael says the Barca free kick was absolutely Odegaard's fault, though. Absolutely Odegaard's fault. He could have done so much better there. C. Wilder says, haha, what a cat amongst the pigeons that would be. Shelter says, it's got nothing to do with being English or not. All of us here, we are still confused as to why he's just dropped. Raya, in his short Arsenal career, has already made costly mistakes as well. Well, Shelter, I have a whole video on it if you want to check it out. I did a video, or actually a section of a part of the podcast with me and Femi speaking about this, and I took out a clip of it speaking about the real reason why Ramsdale has been dropped. And I think it's just as simple as Ramsdale wasn't doing what the manager is asking him to do. Raya, no matter what's going on, continues to play out from the back. And it's so funny that when you watch the Manchester City game, when he gets that pass back from Gabriel and Alvarez almost gets to it, that pass is actually supposed to go across the goal to Raya's right foot. But because it goes to his left foot, he makes it more difficult. It's actually a bad pass from Gabriel. But the more important part is even if Raya was making a mistake back there, what did he continue to do? He continued to play from the back and do what the manager asked him to do, despite there being, because Arteta is never going to drop you from attempting to do what he asks you to do and making a mistake. But remember when Leno and Xhaka had a very similar situation where Leno and Xhaka were playing around with the ball at the back and Xhaka ends up passing it to a Burnley player and they put it in the back of the net? After those big moments, Leno stopped playing from the back and he started kicking the ball long. And what happened? Ramsdale came in and we got a goalkeeper that was confident playing the ball from the back. Ramsdale got caught a couple of times. The example that really stuck with me was Newcastle away when we missed out on top 4. He kept going long and Xhaka made, this big point after the game and like when he was talking to the media about how nobody was listening or the team was not doing what the manager had asked him to do or asked them to do. And one of the biggest parts of that game for me and a lot of other people was the fact that Ramsdale just kept kicking it long. He got caught one time by the Newcastle players and then kept chucking it down the pitch. And, if you're not, Arteta will never drop you for doing what he's asking you to do. So this idea that like, oh, well, Raya's made the same mistakes as Ramsdale, so why is Ramsdale not playing? It's because Arteta doesn't care if you make the mistake. He cares if you're not doing what he's asking you to do. So the answer is just it's quite simple and it's very clear and it's right in your face. How many times were we just going long last season? And how many times were we like, why is Ramsdale not playing out of the back anymore? Is that by instruction? No, it's not by instruction. Arteta never wants you to just hoof it long. He even mentioned it after the Brentford game that Ramsdale started, that we lost control of the game because we kept just going long. We kept going direct when we didn't need to be direct. So it's just that clear. And I feel like people are ignoring the obvious reason because they're trying to think of a reason why it's because like of the playing from the back and making the mistakes. And Ray has made these mistakes. So why is he not being dropped? Because he's doing what the manager is asking him to do. And if you get caught, you get caught. That is the risk of playing from the back. Do you know how many goalkeepers get caught out? We never talk about it because we like maybe you don't watch the other Premier League teams or, it's just not that heavy, like it's not that heavily on your mind like that because it's not Arsenal. But I've seen Allison get caught. I've seen Ederson get caught. I've seen Onana get caught. I've seen so many goalkeepers get caught on the ball. But you have to continue to do it. You just have to continue. And so it's just that simple. I did a whole video on it if you want to go check it out. But I just don't see how people are not seeing that it's not about making the mistake because Arteta is asking you to do it. What he doesn't want is for you to be ignoring his instructions because you're afraid. You need to be brave. And so it's just really not about that. It's just really not about the mistakes. So no matter what was going on with Raya against Lens and he made that mistake in possession, and we've seen Ramsdale make that same mistake, he was going to start the next game because he's doing what the manager is asking him to do. So, period. Unknown says Arteta needs to get sold. Why can't Arteta be dropped? I don't know, Unknown. But last time, I think we found out that you're a Spurs fan. So, but keep getting in the comments because again, like I told you, it helps grow the stream. And we want to get as many eyes on the stream as possible. So keep going. But we already figured out you're a Spurs fan, so we know why you're bitter. Z Gold says, overall, Raya is a much better goalkeeper than Ramsdale. How is this even a conversation? Not people are tapped. Shane says, Raya isn't better than Ramsdale. Arteta is a manager who believes more in favoritism. I mean, that's what you call it when you don't like that your favorites are not playing, but it's not always favoritism. Like, Ramsdale was not the first goalkeeper that we went after. So how can it be favoritism when we know that Arteta was going after Arteta and Inaki Kanya wanted this goalkeeper before they went for Ramsdale? It's not really favoritism, you guys. It's not a favoritism conversation. The Eddie conversation, that's more of a favoritism conversation. This is not a favoritism conversation. Ramsdale is not a better goalkeeper than Raya. And it's not that big of a deal. Raya's older than him by a couple of years. So Ramsdale is a young, talented goalkeeper, and Raya has a little bit more experience. He's a little bit more set in the way that Arteta and Inaki want to play from the back. And so he just has a little bit more, I think, about him right now. He has a couple more years under his belt. Let's just put it that way. And so it's not really a favoritism thing. I think if you just take your emotions out of it, it's really hard for me to understand how people don't see that he's just the better goalkeeper, especially because he's the one we went after first. Like, it's just not that deep, y'all. It's just because we like Ramsdale. Mo says it's Ramsdale's fault if you pay attention to it because of his kicking. I think it's pretty clear, y'all. I think it's pretty clear. Let's see. Ocampo says, what I like about Arteta is he gives you chances to prove yourself, but once you disappoint him, it's done. And here's the thing, y'all, is between the end of the season where we missed out on top four and the time that Ramsdale was dropped, he had a whole season uncontested, y'all. He had a whole season where he only had Matty Turner behind him, which isn't any sort of competition for his position. And quite frankly, how do I say this? Because I think, Ramsdale has the moments where back against the wall, he makes the saves. So I don't want to take everything away from him, right? Because I'm not trying to say that he just was horrendous the entire season, because he wasn't. When we got into the run-in, that's where it became a lot more obvious that he was struggling, in the important games. He was struggling. You think about the Southampton mistake, things like that. It became a little bit more obvious. And the fact that he just had no variation or versatility to his kicking out from the back, and he became very, I would say agricultural in the way that he was doing things back there, limited the way that we could play from the back. And it didn't really start to hurt us until we got into the run-in. Like the amount of times that we just kicked the ball long against Liverpool, the like one of the main reasons why we're just sitting back in our box against Liverpool at Anfield was because Ramsdale just continuously kicked it long to nobody. And he wasn't awful. Like he wasn't awful, but it was a position or was a situation that I found myself continuously thinking about because I'm just like, why are we not getting the Ramsdale that we got at the beginning when he took Leno's position? Who is this guy? This is a completely different person. And so Arteta did give him a long chance. That chance was a whole season, last season, uncontested, not even like he had Matt Turner behind him, and I can name 5 situations off the top of my head where I just think Ramsdale just completely just like had head loss and just made huge mistakes. And that added into the lack of bravery when playing out from the back, I think was just enough for Arteta to just say, you know what, we need to maybe make a change. And there's nothing wrong with that. There was a whole season, so there you go. Saksham says Ramsdale couldn't even start over Pickford. That tells you about his level. That's not nice. So yeah, that's just kind of that, y'all. Love Ramsdale, but it is what it is. And his dad, backed him with the Jamie Carragher stuff, the clapping situation. And I rate a dad that will back his son or back his daughter. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think that sometimes you invite more trolling and stuff like that when you make a decision to come out and like really back your son the way that he did. But I actually really like Nick Ramsdale. I like his dad, and I think he's an interesting character, a good guy, and stuff like that. So I'll never, not rate a parent for backing their child when they feel like they're being, criticized unfairly. Now, there's 314 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Football Transfers has put out an article around Emile Smith Rowe being the subject of some interest from West Ham, and West Ham has the first right of refusal to Emile Smith Rowe, and that kind of that deal or whatever was made during the Declan Rice deal. Now, why would West Ham want Emile Smith Rowe? Well, simple. They're going to lose Paquetá. Like, if you lose Paquetá, you're going to want, another creative, like number 10 type of player in your team. Emile Smith Rowe is going to have a lot of teams looking at him. And I'm not surprised that West Ham would be one of them. They said sources have informed us that the Hammers will be the first opportunity to snap up Smith Rowe if he departs the Emirates Stadium next year, something that has been agreed when Arsenal signed Declan Rice. Smith Rowe has returned from a long-term injury, but has so far been unable to secure a starting spot at Arsenal, leaving his future uncertain. The 23-year-old will be in search of regular game time, with his game time at Arsenal being limited in recent seasons. Smith Rowe was David Moyes' preferred choice over Mohamed Kudus, but it was the Ghanaian who they signed. And so we're going to continuously hear these things about Emile Smith Rowe. Whether or not this comes to fruition with West Ham, it'll be Newcastle, it'll be Aston Villa, it'll be West Ham. There'll be tons of teams in around the European spots that are going to want to bring in Emile. He is so talented. He's young. And I think he just needs a run of games and some playing time in a team that plays in a system that allows him to be a lot more free, a system that plays with a number 10 or players that play on the counterattack, ball carriers, things like that. And really, at Arsenal, that spot doesn't really exist. We don't really play with a natural number 10. He's not really favored on the wings anymore. And we just don't really play with ball carriers like that. Like, he just doesn't seem to have like really a spot at Arsenal. And so I'm not surprised to see reports like this coming out, because January is only a hop, skip, and a jump away. I know that it's like, well, damn, it's October. Why are we talking about the January transfer window? Because if you want to bring in somebody in January, you're damn sure working on it right now. So there will be people contacting his agents, and West Ham would be a good landing spot for Emile Smith Rowe. If we're talking about a good counterattacking team, I said it yesterday, West Ham is not being spoken about enough. With all the drama that they had at the beginning of the transfer window because they were taking so long with the Declan Rice deal, they spent that money very well. Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, Kudus, Mavropanos, they have spent that money very well. And they have, put it on some bigger teams or, different. I wouldn't say all bigger teams. They definitely whooped Chelsea 3-0 because of their counterattacking style. Emile Smith Rowe would be perfect in a team like that because we saw when Emile was at his best with Arsenal is we didn't have that much of the ball, but when we got it, it was just like Emile Smith Rowe, Saka connection, boom, 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 one touch finish. He'd be perfect in a team like that. He'd be perfect at Villa. He'd really suit Newcastle. And so for my Emilians out there, my people that love Emile Smith Rowe and just cannot imagine a future at Arsenal without him, I would start imagining it. I've said for a while, I think the writing is on the wall. This is my personal opinion, not based on any information, not anything concrete, but I just don't think Mikel Arteta rates Emile Smith Rowe that much because the way that you show that you really rate a player is you play him. There's been a long enough time where Emile has been fit, where he could have used him, and he hasn't. And he bought a 65 million pound forward to play in a position that Emile Smith Rowe plays in. So where is Emile going to fit in here? Where are the minutes going to come from? And no, if I'm Emile, I'm not just going to take a Carabao Cup, early round. I'm not just going to take that and then sit on the bench for another couple of weeks. I'm not going to take the odd 15 minutes against Bournemouth at the end of the game. No, I'm not. Because if I'm Emile Smith Rowe, I am 22 and I have the world at my feet and my future ahead of me. And Emile Smith Rowe is too big of a talent to just be sitting around on our bench. He just is, And I just don't think that it's going to be that long before this interest and these reports become concrete bids and offers for Emile. Now, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, that we should not be selling Emile Smith Rowe for anything less than 50 million. And I'll tell you why. Because Emile Smith Rowe has actually scored real goals, in the Premier League, has played decent minutes and has lots of experience, where somebody like Cole Palmer, who's also not very experienced, but very talented, just scored his first Premier League goal in he had 14 appearances or something for Manchester City and got his first Premier League goal a couple weeks ago, and he went for 45. So if you're selling to West Ham, if you're selling to Aston Villa, if you're selling to Newcastle, you need to be getting 50 million pounds for Emile Smith Rowe. He's English, he's young, and there's no reason. Gordon went for 45. So Arsenal, if you're looking at selling Emile Smith Rowe, you should not even answer the phone unless they're saying, you know what, we're going to start at 50. Because the other two players that I just mentioned have not scored anywhere near as many of those the goals that Emile Smith Rowe has scored, and I think he has more experience as well. So, yeah, I think the writing's on the wall for Emile Smith Rowe, and it may prove to be something that the thing is now that we're not selling Socrates and Mustafi, the players that we sell may end up being good somewhere else, and that's going to be hard to watch for certain players that we sell in this coming future, because what you want idealistically is to sell your players for a decent amount of money and then for them never to be able to hurt you. But Emile Smith Rowe going to a Newcastle or something like that, he'll eventually come back to haunt us. He's good enough for that. But if Arsenal get the right fee and we keep moving forward, it won't be that big of a deal. Now, what will become a big deal is if we sell him for peanuts and he comes back to haunt us. So for me, the writing's on the wall, but I want to know what you guys are thinking, because we continuously have conversations around Emile Smith Rowe, and I just feel like, I just don't see the manager rating him, because if he did, he'd play him, and he wouldn't have bought Kai Havertz. It's just that simple to me. It just is. Shane says the most important thing is to get rid of Eddie in January. Sick of him in the team. It's weird because I think there's less of a chance of Eddie leaving than Emile Smith Rowe, because I just feel like Mikel Arteta really rates Eddie. And the reason why I feel like he rates him is because he freaking plays him. So who's going to be the easier one to sell? Emile Smith Rowe is more talented than Eddie. He's younger than Eddie. He has more about him than Eddie, I feel like, that a top club would want, you know. So he's out of favor. He's more talented. He's younger. He's probably, and he's not playing for Arsenal. He's going to be the easier one to get out the door. He's also not on £100,000 per week. So it's more likely that Emile Smith Rowe goes in January than Eddie Nketiah, which is, not something that people want to hear, because they want to hear that the players that they don't rate are going to go. But that's not always how the cookie crumbles. Samuel says, I don't like it when our Haaland boys get caught up in transfer news, but we need the money for Tony, so cut a finger to save a hand. And that's going to be the stinger, because he's Haaland, and you want to see the Haaland boys stay, but Haaland supports the first team in multiple ways. I've said this so many times. Squad positions, they make money for the first team, and then you get the odd Saka here and there. And the better Arsenal become, the less likely you'll see Haaland graduates make it into the first team, because you're only going to get, think about even in the past, how good you had to be to break into the first team at Arsenal. It's been few and far between where guys became legitimate stars in the first team, because the better the team is, the harder it is to make it. And so I think we had that one group that came through, and almost all of them that came through in that group, Reece Nelson, Willock, Sacco is in there as well, Emile Smith Rowe, they were all came through at the same time. Ainsley Maitland-Niles is a little bit older, but same thing, where we were so poor that we had to have our academy players in there just to get something out of the team. We're in a different space now. So unless you're Saka, it's going to be more difficult. And some of these players are going to be used to, get a fee. Some players are going to be filling squad spots. Like I told you guys, I would love to see Patino fill like Jorginho's role next season. But the idea that all these guys are going to make it, just history would tell you that that's not the case, despite how much we love them. But it doesn't mean that it's going to hurt any less. Emile Smith Rowe has been a big part of the beginning of this new cycle of Arsenal. So seeing him potentially go, seeing Tierney as well potentially go, it's just not a nice feeling, but it's something that I think we'll see a lot more of, honestly, if we're good. Acampo says Emile Smith Rowe is down the pecking order because of his injury-prone status. I'm not surprised any top 5 club wants him, as he's average. I'm not surprised any top 5 club wants him, as he's average. He's average at best. So you're actually surprised that anybody would want him? I'm not. I think he's just too talented for people not to want him. And I don't think his problem right now is his fitness. I think his problem right now is Arteta doesn't rate him. I think he played for the under-21s and he played just fine. He's not injured right now, so, and I think his injury proneness came because, of the joints, the growing, things like that. But once he's done growing, I don't know if he's going to have those same problems. So, it's a tough one for Emile, but I'm not surprised that other teams are looking at him. He's very, very talented. Young Gouda says, I hate to see ESR go, but it needs to be for a good fee. We need to figure out how to sell high. Probably our biggest weakness as a club. I agree. It's just not something that I feel like we've been good at ever. It's just our highest sale is Balogun now, I think, at like 30 million or something like that. Like that's just not, but we have assets now that, and I hate to think of players as assets. That's not really the way that you want to think about them, but you have players in your team that have good value. They're young. And think about the difference between Newcastle, instead of buying Kieran Tierney, a player that they were heavily interested in for an entire season. Instead of going for a 27-year-old with massive experience, they went for Lewis Hall, who has barely any experience, but is young and very talented. And so, and they're it's a loan with an obligation for almost 30 million or something like that. And so Arsenal need to get to the point where they're able to sell some of these players for decent fees. And, I would hate for it to be Emile Smith Rowe to end up being the record fee, but if we do end up selling him, it needs to be for no less than 50 million, because that's the going rate for English talent about 20, 21, 22 years old, forwards, whether they've scored goals or not, whether they've had a season as good as Emile Smith Rowe has had, they're going for that amount, so I would expect nothing less. Dalitso says, honestly, I don't rate ESR that much. He's good though. Lloydish says, what does he see in Eddie? Eddie is poor and he needs to be sold. He just likes him. I think it's just that clear, at this stage. John P says, Iwobi, Willick, ESR, Balogun, maybe Eddie, Nelson, Patino. Haaland is a money-making machine. Yeah, I mean, football is a business, so it's pays well to have a good academy. But from a fan side, when you get the emotional side into it, especially we're a club that's heavily attached to our academy because some of our best players have came out of it. It's just not that simple. I don't think most Arsenal fans think of Reece Nelson and Emile Smith Rowe and Balogun as dollar signs, but that's the reality of, the game, is that some players will just kind of end up being players that make decent fees for us. And Emile could end up being one of them. He just has so much value, like right now. So yeah, Blaze says, it's so funny that Arteta doesn't rate ESR when ESR is the reason we started to play with the formation 4-2-3-1 versus Chelsea, because we didn't have an attacking midfielder. We were in hell when Emile Smith Rowe came into the team. That run that we went on, that it's like an 8-game run where we only have like one win, and it's against Man United, which is so funny. That was the El Neni game. I remember we were talking about the El Neni game the other day where he was running around. That game. That was the only win that we had in like 8 games. I remember we were suffering so badly. We couldn't win a game. He was forcing Willian into the team, and he eventually like got real. And we were down in like 13th or some nonsense too. We were down really far down the table, and he brought Emile Smith Rowe in, and Saka was in the team, and it just became basically Tierney, Emile Smith Rowe, and Saka willing us over the line to 8th. And he was our only creative kind of like player, Emile Smith Rowe. It was just such a different time, really. And so that's why I say, like, even though I remember those times, I don't think Arteta needs to make decisions based on that, or the club should make decisions on Emile Smith Rowe based on the fact that he saved Mikel Arteta. Again, that's based on emotion and not based on what's going to be the best for Arsenal moving forward. The emotional decision would be to keep Emile Smith Rowe, despite the manager not necessarily rating him because he saved Mikel Arteta. To me, that's not a narrative that I really buy into. I think it was a time where he figured out a way to use the younger players to get us over the line, and we've really developed past that style of play in the last 2 seasons. And Emile Smith Rowe no longer really fits that in a natural way. And Arteta doesn't change his tactics to suit the players. He has certain tactics, and if you don't fit them, you eventually end up falling away. So like Tierney, which we've spoken about before. And Emile Smith Rowe, I think, is going to suffer from that as well. Arteta already said that his best position is not on the wing. So what does that tell you? Arteta is basically telling you he needs to break through in the 8 position, or he's not breaking through. Now, he's never going to play over Odegaard. I don't care how many blunts you smoke. I don't care how much liquor you drink. Emile Smith Rowe is not going to start over Odegaard. I remember when people started that narrative early on that he would eventually, supersede like Odegaard. It's not happening. What Odegaard gives you off the ball is just something that, even if Emile Smith Rowe scores 10 goals this season, he's not going to start over Odegaard because he cannot do what Odegaard does off the ball. And it's not a luxury that Odegaard does that. It's a requirement. So the only other position that he can really look at is left 8. And the left 8 position is weird because that's becoming more of a off the ball position now more than anything. And so you think it would suit Emile Smith Rowe, but Arteta still doesn't use him there. And so, yeah, I agree that there was a time where Emile Smith Rowe was super important to the team, but he's no longer that player anymore. And I think people need to come to terms with that. Crispy says, I'm in the end. We'll see how this all turns out. If we unfortunately have to sell him, hopefully it's abroad. If you sell him abroad, you're not going to get anything. for him. You're going to get like 25 million for him. The thing is I know we don't want to sell to the Premier League because we're so afraid that it's going to hurt us, but that's the only way that you're going to get 50 million for him. So I'm up for selling him to the Premier League if those are the teams that are interested. Boy says, I care so much about Haaland that I would still have Willick and Martinez in the team right now. But seeing as everyone was fine with them being sold, I don't see why ESR is getting protection. I think it's just they attribute him to that moment where they don't attribute the same like they don't have an emotional attachment to Willick or Martinez. Like Martinez was only in the team for 8 games. You know what I'm saying? Like Martinez was really only in the team for 8 games after Leno got that injury at Brighton. It was 8 games. And even though it was like the FA Cup and all that, I think they actually mostly attribute the FA Cup win to Aubameyang, mostly. So they don't have an emotional attachment to Martinez. And Willick is somebody that was kind of got the Eddie treatment. You know, nobody really saw the value in Willick. People only started revising history on Willick when he started playing well in a system that suited him at Newcastle, which again is a system that we just do not play. We don't play that way. You know, we don't play that type of football. And Emile Smith Rowe is also suffering a little bit from that. I think Wenger children suffer a little bit, you know, from how we play now, because the way that we play now doesn't really have the same feeling as Wenger's Arsenal, where it's very free flowing, a lot of dribblers, a lot of ball carrying, just different. It was just one touch passing. When you look at Emile Smith Rowe, he is a Wenger child, and we don't really play like that. We're very much from the school of Pep when I look at the way that we play and the defensive style of Moyes. So, yeah, that's just what I see. So that's it on Emile Smith Rowe. I love Emile, but the writing is on the wall, I think. And as uncomfortable as that may seem, I don't think this is the end for the rumors around Emile Smith Rowe. All right, guys. There's 230 of you guys still in here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. The channel news has been rolling down at the bottom for the entire time. But again, if you guys were not listening from the beginning, preview will be out tomorrow for patrons. Also, Patreon content. Gunnerly and I will be doing the post-match podcast for the Chelsea game. So if you want to become a patron, the link is pinned in the chat. And it's also in the description box. But if you don't want to be a patron and you want to know when's the next time you're going to see some content, I probably will do a live show tomorrow. And then on game day, pre-match vibes, that is just the beginning of the watch along, starts an hour prior to the game. So we do the watch along and then player ratings immediately following. So that's kind of your content schedule. And I'm working on getting Pippa on the show. So hopefully I can. But I love you guys to death. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the show and always supporting. And I'm so glad you guys got your notifications today because, honey, the show was popping. Okay. So love you guys. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye, y'all.